In the last section, we wrote out our component boilerplate using ES 2015 syntax. Let's just very quickly review what we did. At the top, we used variable destructuring to get access to React.text, React.view, and React.app registry. Second, we replaced our longhand function call with a shorthand fat arrow syntax for our app registry call. We decided not to use the JavaScript class syntax for creating our actual React component down here for reasons that we'll cover in a future section. If you're still unsure about using ES 2015, I really encourage you to give it a try, as it's really, to be honest, just about inevitable that you're going to have to end up learning it if you want to keep writing JavaScript in a couple of years, for better or for worse. Personally, I'm not the greatest fan. I'm really just partial to CoffeeScript myself, but it's the way the industry is moving. What can you do? Anyways, back on track. So let's take a look at a mock for this app, our stopwatch app. So the app itself is going to look very similar to the iPhone's default stopwatch app. At the top, there'll be a timer of the current run. To start the clock, and one is to take a lap. When the user taps start, this button will then turn into a stop button. When they tap lap, the current time will be reset to 0, and an entry will appear at the bottom of the screen that displays the time of that lap. So let's go ahead and get started. In index.js, we've already got our render method here. Let's go ahead and throw in some default placeholder text for right now. So we'll say var view, and then text. And our text will start off as just 0000.00. So we have minutes, seconds, milliseconds. Now it probably makes sense to first figure out how to implement our buttons first, so let's work with that. If we think back to our mock that we were just looking at, what we really need is a label, a text label in a circle of some sorts. So we'll add a text element and we'll wrap it in a view. When we come doing through our styling, the view will eventually turn into the style, and the text will always serve as just a plain text label. So we'll add our view. Inside of it we'll have some text, and by default that button will just say start. And now we really need two of these buttons, one for the start button and one for the lap button. So we will add the same thing for lap. So now we have two views, each of which contain a text. One says start, one says lap. Now one thing that you're going to notice really quickly about building React Native applications, and as we can kind of start to see right here, is that the render method can start to get really busy and very challenging to read. I don't know about you, but personally I don't find this to be very legible. I see pretty easily, I can see that we've got some time, I see a start and a lap, but everything in between is, I don't know, it's kind of messy. So one of the best ways to solve this problem is to move big chunks of view logic, or view tags, into helper methods, and then call those from the render method itself. So let's do that now. I'm going to add a helper function called start stop button, and we'll move the first button in there, and we'll return that chunk of JSX, and then we'll add a lap button for the second chunk, and don't forget to add the return as well. So now that we have that, we'll do our curly braces because we're going to reference a JavaScript variable, and we'll say this dot start stop button, and then this dot lap button. Cool. So just like as we did it in the previous section where we were creating the list of days, we have a helper function that returns some amount of JSX. We'll call that function from our render method, which will essentially take this JSX right here and just stick it right in, which is exactly what we want. Awesome. So I'm going to go ahead and save this. And then we're going to go ahead and open our simulator. So I'm going to just go ahead and open the whole directory. Here's my Xcode project file. I'm going to double click it to open it in Xcode. While that's running, I'm going to go back over to my terminal and remember to run my packager. Never forget to do this because I won't. I'm not going to always remind you to. Just make sure it's always running. Here's our packager. It's all ready, looks good. And we'll go ahead and build our application. Make sure that you have your an iPhone selected here. One of your selections, if you have your iPhone plugged into your machine, you'll see that iPhone pop up on here. But if you don't have that phone properly linked to your computer through Xcode, if you try to run on it, you'll actually get an error. So be careful about that. Make sure that you always have one of these pre-selected iOS devices on here. Okay, so here we go, build succeeded. We got our simulator popping up. And any second now. There we go. So we've got our time, 000, start, and lap. We don't have any styling yet, so of course it looks a little bit ugly, but we'll get to that in coming sections.